Welcome into No Pun Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zolo, and this is week numero dos of live streaming on our Wednesday nights for our recordings. Again, if you are listening to the podcast or listening on 97.3 Sunshine Jams, you want to watch us, you can actually interact with us, type in comments, we can answer any of your questions live, whether it be Periscope, YouTube Live, Twitch, Facebook Live. Go find us all on there. Joining me, as always, the one, the only, Joshua Hudson. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great. Another good show. We got, the third co-host now, Ryan, with us, and another guest.
Woo!
Welcome back, Tommy Garrett from Pro Football Network.
What's up, fellas?
Always a blast having extra guests on to dissect some of these teams because let's face it, they know more than we do. So.
I mean, that's the whole reason we brought Ryan on, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He had some credibility to the show.
So
Tommy and I together will do something.
Yeah, if we combine half and half, we'll get one good person out of this.
Yeah,
There you
right? It's got to be something, right?
Again, self-deprecation. That's something we are definitely good at here.
Specialize in it.
Again, if you are watching live, you want to talk about any of the guys that we're talking about, or you just want any question in general answered about fantasy football, please drop them in the comments. We will be sure to feature them as long as we get to them. Today, we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've officially hit the halfway point through our Look Inside series. So we'll start off here with the Atlanta Falcons, who had the 16th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. If you're new to the show, never seen our Look Inside shows before, we will start with the upside, downside, trust fall, rookie, sleeper, and IDP for each team. We'll go through Josh, Ryan, and Tommy's for each. I cover the sleeper and IDP. And then we will talk about one player that is either difference in terms of opinion between our guests and our analysts, or one that just, looking at the community in general, may have very differing opinions. So we're going to start off here, like I said, with the Atlanta Falcons. Upside, everybody's on the why can't I think of it? The agreement train. That's what I called Josh and Ryan last week for agreeing with almost everything when it came to one team.
Yeah, we're not very creative. Sorry.
No, not at all. But on the agreement train, tight end Hayden Hurst, that's kind of an easy one. Seeing what Austin Hooper did in that offense the last few years, it's only right that Hayden Hurst could replicate some of that. Downside, Josh, you have Todd Gurley. Tommy, you also have Todd Gurley. And Ryan, you have Calvin Ridley, who we will get to in 1 second. Trust fall, everyone has Julio Jones. Sure didn't want Russell Gage there, or
Obviously.
like Ito Smith.
I like Russell Gage, don't get me wrong, but I'm not trusting him with anything.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I understand. And then rookie to watch, Josh, you have Jared Pinkney. Ryan, you have wide receiver Chris Rowland or Roland. He broke Jerry Rice's HBCU record with 104 receptions in 2019. That's a fun stat. Yeah. And then, Tommy, you have Caleb Rep, who is also another tight end on the team. My sleeper, I have Laquan Treadwell. Please don't take Laquan Treadwell. I just had my hands tied behind my back, okay? He can't catch the football. He comes from an offense that used to pass the football.
Fifth-year breakout, baby.
It worked for Devontae Parker.
Right? It works for Parker. It can work for Treadwell.
Sure. Yeah, because Devontae Parker and
at the very least, he's in a high passing volume offense.
Devontae Parker and Laquan Treadwell are the same person. Quote Josh Hudson on that. And then my IDP, I have Deion Jones. I'm a big fan of his. He's sideline to sideline, can basically play everywhere on defense, and not to mention, I believe he picked off Jameis Winston for his 30th interception last year. I could be wrong, but I believe that is true. So, as I said, we're going to wrap back to Calvin Ridley, because the interesting thing is here, Tommy and Josh both like Calvin, whereas Ryan doesn't like Calvin Ridley. So since 2020 is such a crap fest, why don't we start with the bad news? Ryan, why don't you like Calvin Ridley?
Oddly enough, this stems back to the conversation we had with Aaron Larson 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. Ridley's yardage to touchdown is insane. He's scoring a touchdown every 99 yards. That caused me to actually go and dig into a little bit of this for an article, and the best touchdown scorers in the league do it about every 116 yards. I'm worried that that's going to fall back to average, and he's going to be capped at that 8 touchdowns. He's never had 1,000 yards in a season. Julio is a huge roadblock, And right now he's going in the 3rd to 4th round as a wide receiver 2. I feel like, and I say this so often on this show, it's clearly one of my least favorite things. I feel like you're buying him at his ceiling, and that's not something I'm looking to do in fantasy football. So,
All right. So on the other side of that, we'll go to Tommy first. Tommy, why do you like Calvin Ridley?
It's one of the things we kind of look at when they lost, when they tried away Mohamed Sanu, then you lose Austin Hooper. You have a bunch of targets coming in that they need to try to replace. I mean, whole vacated targets, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree, they have to do something with it. This offense, they're going to throw the ball a ton. Then you look at with Calvin Ridley, once Mohamed Sanu left, you had 17.5 PPR points per game. If he has over 8 targets a game, you saw what he did. He did 7 catches for 146 and 3, 6 for 71 and 1, 8 for 93 and 1, 8 for 105 and 1, 5 for 88 and a touchdown, and then he had another game that was 8 for 143 and a touchdown. So if he's hitting that 8 target threshold, which he easily can in this offense, the upside's there. He is capped by Julio Jones, but I think when you look at this offense, you have a 1A and a 1B. They don't have anything much else besides Russell Gage, who we think can step in to be that possibly the wide receiver 3, but it's all coming down between Julio and Ridley.
Josh?
This offense with Atlanta, it's first off, it's a high passing offense. I mean, the last 2 years, 2018, they were 5th most passing attempts. Last year, I believe they had the most. So this is, anytime you have quality weapons in a high passing volume offense, they're going to put up points. Sanu, like Tommy and Ryan have mentioned, he's gone. Austin Hooper's gone. So yes, you bring in Hayden Hurst. Yes, you bring in Todd Gurley. That automatically, to me, it's going to elevate Ridley up into the 110, 120, potentially even 130 target range. And anytime, and we say this all the time, volume is king. So when guys are seeing that type of target volume, it increases their ceiling. Fantasy Pros right now, his ADP, I believe, is wide receiver 18. So I disagree on the sentiment, Ryan, that he's being drafted at his ceiling, because to me that's kind of where he's been finishing. And sure, maybe he only sees 8 touchdowns, but that's okay, because if he stays healthy, which again, each of these past 2 years he's been on pace to top 1,000 yards, but has been a little nicked up, so he hasn't hit that pace. He had 15, even 16 games, he can hit 1,000 yards, no problem, add in 8 touchdowns, potentially 80 catches. That's, to me, that's top 15 upside at minimum.
my biggest concern with that is the Falcons over the last 2 years. Last year, 2 years ago, 8 rushing touchdowns. Last year, 9 rushing touchdowns. If Gurley's on the field, that's what he does best. He's going to almost double those numbers on his own. And is that going to come at the expense of wide receivers? And we know Julio only scores 6 anyway, so it's not coming at the expense of Julio Jones.
Yes, but you're forgetting something, Ryan. This is good year Matt Ryan statistically, right? we're in this year that this is going to be when Matt Ryan puts up a top 5 fantasy season. So that alone should tell you that Calvin Ridley is going to explode.
It'll be good as long as it's not a 28-3 score line at half.
That's true.
There it is.
That's a fact. All right, so this is actually interesting. So looking at Fantasy Pros average ADP right now, Ridley is sitting at wide receiver 17, which is almost like smack dab in the middle of being a wide receiver 2. Okay? So my favorite game, we love this. Who would you rather? That's my favorite game in the world. Jorge 13. Hello there from Periscope. Again, listen to the podcast, join us live. You get to say hey there to us like Jorge did. I'm sure it's Corey, but it's Jorge. Love it. All right. So now
emphasis on the hey part.
Yeah, the hey, like a Valley girl. All right. So Ridley is at wide receiver 17. We're gonna go through everyone that is currently sitting at wide receiver 2 in terms of if you would draft them there. So from wide receiver 13 to wide receiver 24. This is going to be interesting because I feel a lot of people might be taken over Calvin Ridley, which is why I'm bringing this up. So, starting at wide receiver 13, once again, Ridley is 17. Amari Cooper or Calvin Ridley, starting with Josh.
As much as I despise Amari Cooper and the Cowboys, I'm going to take him over Ridley. I just think overall production will be there consistency will lack, but overall production will be there.
Again, as your wide receiver 2, so I want to bring that in. I would
Cooper as a wide receiver 2 is a freaking home run.
Yes, so we're picking wide receiver 2s, not wide receiver 1s here. So Ryan, to you.
Cooper.
Tommy.
Same.
That I would also take Amari Cooper, and if you listen to the show, you understand how much I despise Amari Cooper and his work ethic. So Cooper all the way. Adam Thielen or Calvin Ridley? Josh.
I think I'd go Thielen.
Interesting.
Just from he's the number one guy. It's a lower passing offense, but he is the number one guy. It's redraft, so I'm going to take Thielen. If this were Dynasty, this wouldn't even be a question. It'd be Calvin Ridley.
Okay. Ryan?
I saw a really good stat that when Diggs isn't in, Thielen commands a 25% market share. Definitely Thielen for me.
Tommy?
This one's a lot closer for me. When you're going to have him running more in the slot with Adam Thielen, probably have Justin Jefferson on the outside, this team's probably going to be behind more than we think they might. My issue with Thielen is when they get in the red zone, he's not going to see all those touchdown shares that we think he might. I think I'm actually going to lean Calvin Ridley on this one.
I like it.
I would also lean Calvin Ridley. I don't have the confidence in that Minnesota offense, so I'm going to lean Ridley. Cooper Kupp or Calvin Ridley? Josh? Yeah, these are all very
these
difficult.
are really close. I mean,
yes.
It seems like Cooper is like the guy. Yes, they have Robert Woods, but he always seems to start the season slow, which gets people to sour on him, and Cooper just kind of takes off, then fades into an oblivion. If what they ended up doing towards the end of the season holds true this season, where they're running more 12 personnel and you're kicking Cooper Kupp outside, Cooper Kupp is going to struggle.
Yes.
If they keep him in the slot, he's going to ball just the way that he has been balling. So with that sort of unknown, I think I would lean Ridley. Again, even though I do feel that Cooper Kupp probably will have a more productive year.
Okay, Ryan?
Kupp.
That was quick. Tommy?
I'm going to go Ridley. Personally, I actually think that the Rams wide receivers are being drafted in the reverse order they need to be.
That's interesting. Okay, I like that. At wide receiver 16, back-to-back with Calvin Ridley, they're going overall 43 and 44. A.J. Brown, second-year guy out of Ole Miss. Josh?
I'll take Ridley. I think A.J. Brown is being way overhyped, especially considering such a low passing offense.
And hold on, I know our buddy, friend of the show, Sam Wallace, is listening and watching right now on Periscope. Sorry, Sam. I don't know about A.J. Brown as a wide receiver 2 right there. I know you are infatuated with him, and I love his skill, but man, he has Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback. That is a tough one. Ryan, to you.
First and foremost, love the Bobby Trees love in the chat.
Yeah.
Secondly, this has me. I'm not taking A.J. Brown. I'll take Ridley there. So.
Tommy?
Yeah, sweep it. He'd have to be so efficient with his touches, try to keep up what he did last year. I don't see it happening personally.
Sam, we're sorry, but I'm also taking Calvin Ridley. That's a clean sweep there.
Again, if this were Dynasty, give me A.J. Brown all day.
Sure.
But,
Sure. I agree there. I think Brown has more in the long run. And someone brought up fantasy gone full. That's definitely
NFL.
Fantasy Go NFL.
Come on, Joe.
Reading it really hard.
Listen,
Trust me, I get it.
Listen, shut it, okay? A.J. Brown, he brought up a great point. A.J. Brown only has 5 games with more than 4 receptions. He says that worries him. I mean, that's completely fair. And I think maybe some of that plays to having Marcus Mariota for the first half of the season, or like for the first 6 games, whatever it was. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Ryan Tannehill is a major upgrade over Marcus Mariota. I think he's more conservative and maybe better in terms of not being as risk-taking as Mariota. But I don't
think there's any way in hell that Ryan Tannehill completes almost 70% of his passes.
No, of course not.
Crazy.
That's a flash in the pan, and the Titans are going to regret giving him a 4-year contract.
This is nothing against A.J. Brown's talent, because if you listened to our draft show 2 years ago, you would have heard myself and Josh goo gaga over A.J. Brown. And then the moment he was drafted to Tennessee, we wanted to flip a table. So it was just, bad landing spot. But, it's like we say bad landing spot for CeeDee Lamb because he's surrounded by a lot of targets, but he has Dak Prescott as his quarterback. It was a bad landing spot for A.J. Brown because he has Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. So that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. All right. 17 is Calvin Ridley. 18, Cortland Sutton or Calvin Ridley. Josh.
Oh, Sutton all day, every day.
Ryan.
Sutton.
What?
Sutton.
Sutton. Thank you. Tommy.
Yeah, give me Sutton.
I'm also Sutton. I feel like that is an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah.
In my opinion. They're going back to back. So 17, 18, 44, and 45 overall, respectively. So they're going back to back. So it's not like, one's wildly favored over the other. Wide receiver 19, Keenan Allen or Calvin Ridley. Josh.
I'm going to take Ridley, and I feel like that's sacrilege, but just that quarterback situation in Los Angeles with the Chargers really worries me.
Okay. Ryan.
As I brought up on the Chargers show, it doesn't worry me, Keenan Allen, for sure. So.
Tommy.
I'm going Ridley. I think Keenan Allen might have a hard time hitting 1,000 yards this year.
I have a chubby for Keenan Allen, so I ride the Keenan Allen train all day, every day. Yes, he may struggle, but I love
He's still
Keenan
Allen. So
I
I
love-
get it 100%.
He is-
Yeah.
He is.
150 catches for 900 yards. I'm okay with it.
I mean,
In PPR, yeah, you're going to love
Yeah.
that. He'll get all the targets he wants.
I mean, you want to consider, like we're comparing, Calvin Ridley to Keenan Allen. You want to consider two of the smoothest route runners in the league. Yeah. Keenan Allen and Calvin Ridley are just, it is orgasmic watching them run routes.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. So two of the best route runners in the league. Calvin Ridley and the aforementioned Bobby Trees. Who would we like, Calvin Ridley or Robert Woods? Josh.
Give me Trees.
Ryan.
Trees all day.
Tommy.
Yep, same. Sweep it.
Bobby Trees, agree. I'm also there. Calvin Ridley or DK Metcalf? Josh.
So that's
a
another
tough
one.
one.
Just the low passing volume. From a talent perspective, give me DK, but I think this year in fantasy, I want Ridley.
Ryan.
Yeah, I'm still a believer in Tyler Lockett. I haven't jumped off that, so I'll take Ridley.
Okay. Tommy.
Yep, I agree. Can you imagine they actually let Russell Wilson just throw the ball?
Oh, man.
I mean,
why would they
imagine
do
what
that?
could happen with DK
600
Metcalf.
pass attempts?
Yep,
Oh, my
exactly.
God.
Just
DK would
open him
be
up.
Julio Jones.
Yeah, it'd be ridiculous.
So the issue is Sam is not happy. There's a lot of Ridley disrespect in here, according to him. But so the issue I have with, saying let Russell Wilson throw the football more is his offensive line can't allow him to do that because his offensive line blows a pass blocking. Like they built their entire
Exactly.
they built their entire offensive line to go forward. If you're a gamer, press W, and instead of having them go backwards. Their first step on their offensive line is always forward. They never once the Seattle Seahawks offensive line goes backwards, everything goes to crap. Like nothing works. So that's the issue there. And yes, Wilson is mobile, but how mobile can you be to let DK Metcalf get down the field quick enough? So it's like, the things to take into account. From one Seahawks receiver to another, Tyler Lockett or Calvin Ridley? Josh.
I would take Ridley.
Ryan.
Lockett.
And Tommy.
I'm going Ridley.
Wow, very, very mixed. I don't know. Honestly, if you gave me the option, I would draft a running back or a tight end. Like I don't want either of these guys on my team. Hell, if my quarterback's there, I'll take him because at this point, I love Tyler Lockett as a player. I don't like the system he's in. Like I said, Seattle is not built to throw the football. Calvin Ridley, wow, do I just hate the Falcons ever since they blew that lead. My good. I mean, I love them because I'm a Patriots fan, but I can't sit there and tell you that I want a single Atlanta Falcon on my team after what happened to them in that Super Bowl. So
I mean, for me and Lockett and him, I have them within 4 points of each other in my projection.
Okay.
Like
That's fair.
A touchdown one way or another. Like that's it.
Okay, Josh, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this out here really quick. It actually a comment from Sam, and I want to kind of actually show this to everybody because, Joe, I know you're a big gamer.
Yes.
So,
Yes, for those listening to the podcast, Sam says Joe with the W key gamer reference. You love to see it. Heck yeah, baby. To all my gamers out there, For those that play Overwatch and you're a main tank, just press W. Please stop pressing S. Everyone hates you in the community.
Anyone
Everybody
Joe
hates you.
disagrees with, he's gonna be like, "Hey, just 1v1 me on Rust."
Oh my god, that was okay. Listen, we want to talk about games for a sec. Modern Warfare 2 is the best first-person shooter game that Activision Blizzard has ever created, and there is no. The only competition I'll give you is Black Ops 1, and that's solely for the zombies mode. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, their multiplayer was great, but Modern Warfare 2 was, I think, by far the best Call of Duty game that franchise has ever made. It has only gone downhill since then.
The one thing I will say, if you played BO1 and you used the LSAT with a target finder,
Ooh.
I hope you've probably just ran your car off a road at some point.
I am so lost in this conversation.
Oh,
'cause I'm
God.
not a
Josh,
gamer.
listen. You know how we're nerds of fantasy football. This is like when you think of like the stereotypical nerd, right? You think like gamer, anime, like that stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
my area here. That's like my side gig from this. That's my side hoe that I cheat on fantasy football with. All right, last two guys. Where are we? Calvin Ridley or DJ Chark? To me, this is an interesting one. Josh.
Ooh. I like this one. This would definitely make me think if both were available. I'm going to lean slightly to Shark, but it is close because I do like both of them.
Ryan.
I'd go Ridley.
Tommy.
I agree with Josh. I think it's close, but I trust Matt Ryan a little more than I do Gardner Minshew.
Oh, totally fair.
I think Chark is absolutely going to see. Well, why I say that is because Chark's going to see the targets, but are going to be catchable.
That's
So
fair.
I think I'm going to go Ridley.
That's fair. And I'm going to skip 24 because it's T.Y. Hilton, and I have a feeling who all of you are going to say. So I'm going to bring up one that Fantasy Go NFL had typed into the chat here. Calvin Ridley or Stephon Diggs, Josh?
Oh, Ridley. I love Diggs, but I do not trust the passing offense as a whole in Buffalo. I just don't see them throwing the ball 550 times to really give Diggs any sort of relevance in fantasy this year.
Okay, Ryan?
Yeah, and to touch on what Tommy just said, how many of those balls are actually catchable? I'll take Ridley.
Okay, and Tommy?
Yeah, I'm going Ridley here too. I think Diggs for me is like my wide receiver 28 when I sat him out this year. I'm really low on him.
I was even lower.
Okay.
I think he was 33 for me.
Yeah.
So in terms of strictly value, because there's a big difference between Ridley and Diggs. There's one's at 17, the other one's at 26 in terms of ADP. If I were to tell you that you get Calvin Ridley in the middle of the 5th round, or you could get Stephon Diggs in the middle of the 7th round, who would you rather, Josh?
Ridley.
Ryan?
Diggs.
Tommy?
That's way closer when you look at average draft position in that. Knowing that I'm getting Diggs as probably my wide receiver 3 at least, I actually kind of like the upside of Diggs on that one.
I have to agree is that I'm getting Diggs as wide receiver 3. Easy. Like I think that's a no-brainer in my opinion. I think you go Diggs there just in terms of value. The system is way better for Calvin Ridley right now because he has an actual quarterback. Josh Allen can only throw deep, so that really limits what Stephon Diggs can do. All right, moving into now our next team, the Dallas Cowboys. Upside, Josh, you have Blake Jarwin, the tight end. Ryan and Tommy, you both have Michael Gallup. Downside, Josh and Tommy have Amari Cooper. Thank God. And Ryan, you have CeeDee Lamb. All right, looks like we got to kick you off the show again. Trust fall. Everyone has Ezekiel Elliott. Rookie to watch. Everyone has CeeDee Lamb. Sleeper, I have Tony Pollard. Let me just bank on Zeke getting hurt a couple games. Like, that's really what I'm banking on here. I can't choose a sleeper at receiver because there's nothing there. I feel like people are a little high on... I feel like Jarwin's going in his exact spot that he should be going at. So I went with Pollard. And my IDP, I have Jalen Smith. The only reason I'm taking Jalen Smith over Leighton Vander Esch is because they gave Jalen Smith an absolutely fat contract. So they have to use him. That's the only reason I'm putting Jalen Smith over Leighton Vander Esch. If I had to pick, I think Vander Esch is a better run defender. Jalen Smith is more athletic, so that kind of puts him, I feel, in more of a versatile category. But No, I'd still picking Jalen Smith there. So we talked about a receiver with the Falcons. I mean, talk about the biggest mashup of receivers right now in this Dallas Cowboys offense with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. I guess let's start with the vets here, and we'll start with the downsides. So Josh and Tommy, and Josh, I'll let you lead on this one. Amari Cooper is the downside. Why do you have him there?
It's just consistency overall. When you look at the top 12 guys from last year, he was arguably the least consistent. Let me pull up my consistency rankings really quick. But yeah, I think he only had, 3 total top 12 finishes among wide receivers that actually finished in the top 12. And that was by far the lowest. When you increase it to wide receiver 2 performances, barely half. It was at 8 out of 15 weeks, because we do weeks 1 through 16 here. So it's when you're looking for that wide receiver 1, and that's kind of where he's going. I believe it's like wide receiver 10, 11, 12 range.
He's currently at wide receiver 13, so you're technically getting him as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah. So again, if he's my wide receiver 2, then I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable. I have him in the way that I statted out. I actually have him as wide receiver 5. So I think that there's a lot of like upside there because of the increased passing volume. But I think his best position, though, is running the slot. And when you look at Gallup, you look at Lamb now, those guys are tailor-made to work on the outside.
Yeah.
Cooper's route running is more tailor-made for the slot because he works so well in space. And most defenders, when they're playing in the slot, they're giving you a lot more cushion than they are when they're playing press and man on the outside. So Cooper has the ability to be a lot more effective to me running in the slot. And if that's the case, I would not be shocked if Dak Prescott peppers him with 140 plus targets this year. Because again, this is a 600 plus passing attempt offense. Even looking back into McCarthy's time with Green Bay, the last 3 years that he was there, 16, 17, and 18, he averaged 607 pass attempts per year. The only year that he didn't top 600 was the year that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So, again, they threw the ball 600 plus times last year. I have zero doubt that they're going to do it this year. And between Lamb and Gallup and Cooper, it would not surprise me if all 3 of those guys are over 100. And Cooper is well above that because they just paid him $20 million a year for the next 5 years. So I don't see why you're not going to pepper that guy with targets. But again, it boils down to the consistency. Is he going to do it every week? There were several weeks last year where he wasn't even a flex. Like, he wasn't even startable. He was off everybody's ranking list. It was bad. And you didn't see that a lot from those top guys.
5 weeks where he finished 55 or worse.
Yeah, that's bad. So again, when you're that fringe sort of like wide receiver 1, when it comes up to consistency, I want somebody who's going to be consistent. Cooper's not. That's why he's my downside.
Okay. Tommy, anything to add on there?
I mean, he pretty much nailed it. I mean, Amari Cooper had as many weeks as a wide receiver 1 as he was a wide receiver 4. I'm not drafting that if I'm taking him at wide receiver 13, because arguably at that point, you're probably in your draft, you're taking him as your number 1 wide receiver. Unless you've stacked it towards the end or whatever, he's probably going to be your first wide receiver off the board. So you need that upside and that consistency, especially. If I'm getting someone who's just as likely to finish as a flex than he is a wide receiver 1, I don't think I really want that on my team.
He's essentially the new Julio Jones, Joe. That's what he is.
Listen, I've hated Amari Cooper forever, so that's...
Well, now that Julio's being more trustworthy, now you can shove all that hate towards Amari Cooper now.
Yeah, I mean, Julio, I don't know if I'm going to draft Julio, but Julio has won back a spot on my team. For the time being, at least. We'll see how this year goes. But Amari Cooper has been condemned since after his rookie year. He just... I mean, it shows in the fantasy football numbers. He's either all there and in, or he's a complete ghost. And, Josh, I know you know this well. The one play that I always come back to that epitomizes to me Amari Cooper is 4th down against the Eagles in a pivotal and critical game on the road, and he is on the bench. He doesn't care about football. To me, he doesn't care. Like, there will be times he's very motivated and he'll want to play and he'll want to do his best. But I have no clue. Ready? Compared to LeBron James, right? LeBron will show up when he wants to and then quit in the 2011 NBA championship series against the Dallas Mavericks. It's like, you don't know what LeBron you're going to get week in and week out. And I have no clue what Amari Cooper I'm going to get week in and week out. So, I mean, if you could tell me, hey, give me Amari Cooper as a wide receiver 3, sure. Definitely not taking him at wide receiver 13, despite
the
what
flip
we
side to
may have
that
said.
too, Michael Gallup actually, on a per target basis, and sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to, I figured that's kind of where you were going when you reacted when I started this. Gallup actually outplayed Cooper. Like, when it comes to fantasy points per target and production, etc., Gallup had better numbers than Cooper last year.
Because
that's
Gallup's
my
a
thing.
baller.
And you'd have to see a change in culture, because I think you're absolutely right, Josh, that Cooper is likely to slide into the slot. But Cobb played the slot last year and was only averaging like 6 targets a game. I understand Cooper's better than Cobb, but Dak is made to throw the ball to the outside. Gallup averaged more targets per game than Cooper did. And you want to talk about a guy who wants to be on the field. That was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury, and the guy came back in 2 weeks last year and then balled out on his first game back. And it's obscene that you can get him as the wide receiver 33 right now. He should be a 1A, 1B with Cooper, and he's going 21 spots later. So Gallup all day in that offense.
All right. So something I'm seeing right here from Fantasy Go NFL, which we appreciate every single comment coming in right now. Again, you're listening on the podcast on 97.3. Be sure to join us Wednesday nights for the live show recording. He asks, if you're at the last pick and you grab Julio and DeAndre Hopkins, are you worried about your number 1 running back being at the end of the 3rd round? And I'll let anybody chime in here.
I would be.
Yeah.
I would be very worried. I
I
almost exclusively take running backs as my first pick.
With the depth of wide receiver this year,
so deep.
I don't really see a need to double up at wide receiver in the back end, with the wrap from 1 to 2, because I can get, as we're going through and talking about this, like, just pulling up like ADP with some of these wide receivers, like, would I love Cortland Sutton as my number 1 wide receiver? Probably not, but I'm okay with it if I'm doubling up at running back. Kind of the same thing with Ridley or even Keenan Allen. Like, he's going to fall because of that situation in LA. So, and even Robert Woods. I would absolutely have any of those guys and be happy with it as my number 1 if I'm doubling up at running back. I can't say the same if I'm doubling up at wide receiver and then looking at the running backs that are ultimately going in that 3rd, 4th round range, because they're just not going to be anywhere near as inspiring. You're looking at Chris Carson, David Johnson, James Conner, Devin Singletary. That's not appealing to me at all.
I mean, if you're looking at guys that have ADP of 50 to 55 as wide receivers, you're looking at Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, N'Keal Harry, John Brown, Anthony Miller, Preston Williams. I have Anthony Miller as a sleeper. I have John Brown as a sleeper. With the addition of Cam Newton, that brings N'Keal Harry's stock up, considering if Cam Newton starts. Jamison Crowder, I feel, is being wildly underrated right now. And then Sterling Shepard, obviously, if he can stay healthy, he produces. And if you look at the running backs from 50 to 55, you're sitting here with Duke Johnson, who I love, but he just doesn't get playing time, which is the sad reality of it.
Yeah, we love him. Coaches don't, apparently.
Coaches don't, for some reason. At 5 straight seasons with 16 games played, never missed a game. Averages 4 points. God, we'll get to there when we get to the Texans. Antonio Gibson, Nyheim Hines, Justin Jackson, Chase Edmonds, Anthony McFarland Jr. We like Nyheim Hines on the show. We like Duke Johnson, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Nyheim Hines is a lock to be a running back 2 at, RB 52 in his draft stock, whereas, I could sit here and tell you that realistically, John Brown, Anthony Miller, and Jamison Crowder could argue for a low-end wide receiver 2 spot, and I firmly believe that. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I say two names that make me more comfortable with this strategy. Josh, you already said him with a nasty tone to your voice, but Chris Carson was a
I love Chris Carson, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that I trust
Carson.
him as my RB1.
And David Johnson pre-injury had like 5 RB1 weeks, and they're going to run the hell out of him in Houston. I'm just saying, if I took 2 stud wide receivers at the turn and then turned around with Carson and David Johnson, I'm not upset at that point in the draft. It might not be how I wanted it to go, but I'm not upset.
The one caveat I will say is if you take David Johnson, make sure you take Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
Because if anything happens to David Johnson, Duke Johnson has RB2 potential.
And something here that we have kind of yet to touch on is the fact that CeeDee Lamb fell to 17 in the draft. So let that sink in before we begin talking here. Is that Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, which, okay, Jerry Judy's fine. Like, I guess that's okay because he was really good. But we're going to sit here and say Henry Ruggs should be taken over CeeDee Lamb. Like, come on, people.
I was sitting here with you guys when that happened.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were.
Yeah, Tommy was on the show, on our live draft show. I mean, we're losing it. Like, he kept not getting picked.
Hayward Bay all over again with the Raiders, though. Like, I'm hoping Ruggs outperforms that, but they just keep, because wasn't it Crabtree that they could have taken but took Hayward Bay instead? Or I might be getting that confused, but it was, they had some option there, and they go with the fast guy, and it's just what they do. Where CeeDee Lamb, he's a wide receiver 1, he belongs in that spot, and the Raiders are just like, nah, we're good.
So everyone obviously here has their rookie to watch as CeeDee Lamb. I want to start with Tommy. So for those that aren't sold on CeeDee Lamb, for some stupid reason, right?
Why? Yeah.
Sell me right now. So I'm going to read you his ADP because I think this is, like, even for a rookie, I think this is freaking hilarious. He's wide receiver 41 right now, so he's being taken as a wide receiver 5, currently being taken at the back end of the 12th round.
That's insane.
So, Tommy, I want you to sell me, like, a quick elevator pitch. Why should CeeDee Lamb deserve a starting roster spot on your fantasy team?
You're getting a guy in the offense that has the second most vacated targets, that's attached to Dak Prescott, that could easily be a wide receiver 2 every single week he steps on the field. He's one of the best wide receivers we've seen come out of college. He was able to usurp Jerry Jeudy, who was going for back-to-back Biletnikoff awards at Alabama. We saw what he did in college. There's no way he can't do the exact same thing in the NFL. I don't care if you press him. I don't care if you play him off. He can beat any coverage out there. If you want to be physical with him, that's fine. He can do the exact same thing, and then he'll show his shoulder to you and fly right by you. And he can make any catch on the sidelines.
So I'm going to add on here before we get to this question from Dark Sage over on Twitch. So the first time I watched CeeDee Lamb play football was the Red River Shootout this year against Oklahoma, Texas.
Yep.
I believe it's Columbus Day weekend is the end of the Texas State Fair. So it was that Saturday before Columbus Day, or what the new, I don't know what the new holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day. That Saturday. I turned it on, and I probably tuned in about halfway through the second quarter. And the first play I see is CeeDee Lamb catching the ball, I don't know, 15 yards downfield, and he made 5 Texas defenders miss and walk into the end zone.
Is that the one where he cut across the field?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my first interaction with CeeDee Lamb. And then as I continued to watch the rest of the game, I continued to watch him absolutely curb stomp that entire team. Like, it was unfair how good he was against them. He has the drive to be the best, and by far was the best receiver in this class. The only comparison that people had for this guy, I forget the specific website, but the only comparison that they had for him was Jerry Rice.
That was Player Profiler.
That's pretty good.
Like, Jerry Rice, the best wide receiver of all time, was the only apt comparison for CD Lamb. That's ridiculous. That's unbelievable. So, I do want to get to Dark Sage's question here because I think that, go ahead, Josh. I see you
For
raising
more
your hand.
on CD Lamb, one of our writers, Chris Molina, just put up an article on CD Lamb. We posted it on Tuesday, so feel free to head over www.clubfantasyffl.com and you can check out his thoughts because he does actually bring up the player comp of Jerry Rice. So
It's honestly unbelievable. And we have two questions here before we move on. So Dark Sage 9117 over on Twitch. So we brought this up. This isn't football related, but I do think this is interesting because I've been seeing more of these concepts as someone who works in sports business. So he says he lives in Indiana and in the local newspaper. Hey, there you go, Tommy. Make a friend. In the local newspaper, the town wants the drive-in theater to show the Indianapolis 500 live this year. He said back in the 60s and 70s when he was growing up, the race used to be shown in theaters nationwide. Do you think it's a good idea as long as social distance guidelines are followed? He says he remembers back in the 60s and 70s going to the movie theater and watching the race for about $40 on the big screen, and at the time, it was quite the thing. He said he'd love to see it come back. So, Tommy, I see you aggressively nodding. You like the idea?
I'd love it. A lot of people don't realize, like here in Indiana, we don't actually get to watch the Indy 500. For us, it's blackout, so we have to watch it on a tape delay at like 8 p.m. So we get to listen to it on the radio, and that's how I've always been able to enjoy it, and I still do, is listening to it on Memorial Day weekend. But for me, I would absolutely love to go to a drive-in movie theater and actually be able to watch it live for like the first time ever. Throw in some nachos and a cheap pretzel and some beer, I'm all in.
you never actually been up to Indianapolis to watch one of the races live?
No, you can't hardly get into
No?
it. You got like almost 250 to half a million people that get into the
I went
Indianapolis
to
500.
the Brickyard 400 one year. My dad took me when I was
That's the
growing
one
up.
thing I've been to. We have a friend that works at IMS, and we got free tickets to the Brickyard 400 last year, sat right across from the paddock and everything. It was awesome to go to. It's not a great race to go to. It's not a great track because you can't see anything past like the entrance into turn 4 and exit of turn 1. So you can't see anything that happens. And those are the two spots where it's like, not too much is happening. But it's a hallowed track. It's one of the great places in America as far as sports go. But yeah, I'd love to actually finally see the Indy 500.
So, I mean, you talk about like iconic tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first two that come to mind, I think, for most people are Daytona and Indianapolis because of the
You could throw
Daytona
Talladega
500.
in that mix, too.
Yeah,
Talladega as
Talladega.
well, just because it's so
That's
so
a big
huge.
track. That's a big track.
That is, I mean, it's a super speedway for a reason. So for those that don't know racing, and I believe this is held true. If a track is called a super speedway, it means that drivers on average don't go under 200 miles per hour on the track.
Well, it's also the size of
The
track,
size of it
too.
as well.
I think those tracks are more than 2.5 miles.
Yes,
like, for a full lap. So
Talladega is absolutely massive, but the Indy 500 iconic. So I didn't know that if you lived in Indiana, it was on a tape delay.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
didn't know
So-
either. I have family that lives up in Indiana, and I never even knew that. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So I think that is a no-brainer in my opinion. Are you kidding me?
I
mean,
kind of
like,
look at it this way, and you feel free to chime in, guys. But like, think of when you go watch like blockbuster movies at the movie theater, and then watching them on your Blu-ray at your house. Like the experience is just different because you have all the sound effects, you have the the depth of the screens and everything. So you just it helps you feel like you're part of the experience.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that at home. So I think that utilizing this experience, whether it's for racing or hell, even football games, like that would be a really cool experience to just go to a movie theater and you've got like THX and you've got all the, the boombox stereos in your ear, like what some theaters have. Like that would be a really cool experience to me.
So I'm just going to crash this with reality, though. Learning that it's blacked out in Indiana, I can't imagine the amount of money that theater would have to pay to be allowed to do that. So
sure.
if you can petition them all they want, if they're going to lose money on the deal, they're not going to do it. So
This is true.
Oh, it totally makes sense. Absolutely. Money talks and everything.
Yeah.
I love the idea, though.
No, that's fair.
great idea. Not disparaging the idea. It's just I can't imagine how much that would cost.
Yeah. And the last thing here before we move into the Steelers to wrap up, Fantasy Go NFL with another one. So do you think with these 3 Cowboys receivers, will it reduce stacked boxes and open up more running lanes for Ezekiel Elliott? And we'll start with Josh on this one because I know you love Zeke.
I'm a huge Zeke guy. I am all about it. I mean, they have such a good offensive line that even if they were to stack the box, I don't think it would matter much because Zeke is just that good. But sure, I mean, you have 3 dynamic weapons like that. You can't afford to bring 8 up in the box. Like, why wouldn't you want to double team Cooper or Gallup or Lamb towards the tail end of the season when everybody realizes, holy crap, this guy's really freaking good? So, I don't see a need to stack boxes when you can spread it out 3 wide like that.
So my only issue with this is, and I'm going to play the Joe role a little bit here. How often do you think Zeke faced stacked boxes last year? I dug into this.
I was literally looking this up.
How often?
Yeah, just the percentage of carries. How
so
often?
Is this 8 or more men in the box or
Yes.
7? 8 or more. Okay. Man, they still had a high flying offense last year. 30%.
Okay, Tommy.
22. I'll go Price is Right rules. I'm taking the under.
Josh, you look it up yet or no?
I haven't come across it yet. I would say it's probably under 20%.
Yeah, it's only 15%. I don't see there's any way that it gets reduced. Yeah, I looked this up earlier for the article that I was writing about the Cowboys just to see how that might affect him, and I don't see it going down.
No.
I went safe.
According to Next Gen
30%.
Stats, he faced 8-man fronts 19.27%.
Okay,
That's still so
Still below
low.
20.
That's still below 20, yeah.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, Zeke was the only running back last year that never had a week outside of the top 24.
Yeah.
He was as consistent as it gets. And now you're adding another threat that defensive coordinators have to worry about. The Cowboys are probably going to see way more nickel and way more dime this year. So I could see Zeke absolutely feasting this year.
I want to throw one more thing out, and I'm going to butcher his name. The editor for the Fantasy Footballers, Kyle Borgognani, I think it is. I know that's who he is.
He edits all your articles, and you can't even pronounce his damn last name right. How freaking rude is that?
I can spell it.
Ooh, that's big.
Mad credit to him. He wrote an article 2 years ago about vacated targets on teams that have a large amount of vacated targets. A good portion of them tend to find themselves to the running back. And if Zeke starts to approach 100 targets again, he could take a run at Christian McCaffrey if he keeps up his rushing value and touchdowns. So I love Zeke this year.
So what about Tony Pollard? He flashed big time last year. So to your point, sure, they running backs could see a lot of targets, and I saw Sam Wallace, he commented on this. He's like,
yes,
Pollard could very easily have standalone value as a flex, which I could very easily see that. I know Pollard was Joe's sleeper, and and just think, like, if Zeke goes down with an injury, Pollard could very easily be a fringe RB1.
Yeah, he was only targeted 20 times last year, but caught 15 of those 20 and scored a touchdown. If you double or maybe even triple that, if they find a way to work him into that offense even just a little bit, he's going to put up RB3 numbers as a guy who has no immediate standalone value. And then if Zeke goes down, it's a game changer. He is absolutely an RB1 at that point.
Yeah, he's easily one of the top handcuffs, if not the top handcuffs in fantasy football this year.
I think the question I have for you guys, given what you just said, Ryan, about vacated targets, are we as an industry not talking enough that Zeke is actually the RB2 and not Saquon Barkley in redraft startups?
Oh, 100%. I'm all on board on Zeke, have been from day one, and it's definitely something where everyone's plugging Saquon in there, and I think Zeke is being
it seems like it's always been Saquon by default, given what we saw in his rookie season, and then everyone gives him the excuse of the ankle injury, and he came back too soon, and we saw what he did in his final 3 weeks. But given the consistency of Zeke and what we can see happen in that offense, it might be something we need to take a look at and try to kind of discuss a little bit more openly.
Yeah, just in my projection, Zeke was number 2. Like, I want that, not only production, but I want the consistency that Zeke brings to the table, because
he's also
I know
better offensive line.
Just over the first 4 years of his career. Yeah, well, sure, the offensive line plays a big part, but he's averaging almost 25 touches per game. And we talk all the time, volume is king. 2 years ago, he had 90 targets. Last year, he had another 71 targets. Like, he's adding that receiving value that kind of lacked the first couple years. They're showing that, hey, Zeke can do everything. So why aren't he's not as flashy as Saquon. He's not gonna turn every single touch into a 60-yard romp for a touchdown.
Yep.
But he's also going to fall forward for 2 or 3 yards every time, whereas Saquon's going to lose yards 30% of the time.
Trying to find yards.
Yeah, exactly. That is the most annoying thing in the world to me. Just fall forward. It is not that hard.
Josh, the Patriots of Sony Michel. Shut up. I don't want to hear about anything about running backs falling forward. Okay? So Sony Michel.
But now you have Cam Newton. You don't have to worry about Sony Michel.
One of my favorite stats, though, that's been going around, and we've already talked about this team. I missed the show. Was Nick Chubb had 15 red zone carries for negative 14 yards.
Oh God,
it's
I
unbelievable.
love that stat because it actually happened. They almost had 8 plays in one game because they almost got like a 4th down. They got the conversion. It was
it was against Buffalo.
Yes, and they could not punch it in like 8 straight plays and just kept going backwards.
They ran the ball, and this is God. R.I.P. Freddie Kitchens. He didn't die. It's just his coaching career.
Yeah, it's dead.
4 straight rushes on the 1-yard line. Okay, first off, should they have scored? Probably. Yeah. Should you have called 4 straight running plays? No.
I mean, call a naked bootleg. Do something.
Naked bootleg.
He's
Play
just
action.
trying to not be Pete Carroll. I'm going to double down to make sure I'm not Pete.
There you go.
It's like
and still had the same end result.
The one thing I don't understand with teams is if you want to run it on first down on the 1-yard line, go nuts. Like, be my guest. If you get stuffed, please, God, spread someone out or run a play action. You employ 6'6" tight ends for a reason. Run a play action and let your quarterback just dump it over the top.
Yeah, I think that whole sequence of plays just epitomized how paltry that Cleveland offensive line was last year.
It's not like they went out and paid for a wide receiver who specializes in contested catches or anything.
Right?
Or went and got a 6'8" tight end from Kansas City.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Harris.
Demetrius Harris. And then, you have one of the best route runners and slot receivers in the NFL in Jarvis Landry that could probably shake anybody that's covering him. Freddie Kitchens.
I like this stat actually that Fantasy Go NFL just gave us. He's kind of agreeing with us that Zeke is the number 2. More touchdowns on a per game basis and 10 more scrimmage yards per game than Saquon. I mean, that just goes to show you just the overall production, the consistency, everything that Zeke brings to the table. But because he's not flashy, people aren't on that bandwagon.
And that's on a team that's throwing the ball 600 times per game.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, their defense isn't good either. So no one's
average
defense
at best.
No one's defense in the NFC East is good. So it's just a complete shootout every single game. So not surprised. They're going to throw the ball 600, probably 700 times this year. Let's be honest.
Breaking record.
Yeah.
Because none of us are worried about Mike McCarthy and his impact.
No.
That's all overblown from what happened with Green Bay.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to think that he figured, like, he took a year off for a reason, kind of figured out where things fell off.
Well, yeah, remember he took a deep dive in analytics.
Well, but I think the smartest thing that he did, though, was keep Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was a really good play caller last year. So it's, now it becomes, okay, I did it, I succeeded. Now, what am I going to do to adjust when defenses figure out what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Yep. And, all right, last team of the night. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Tommy's beloved Steelers.
Yep.
Upside, Josh, Ben Roethlisberger, Ryan, James Conner, Tommy, Juju Smith-Schuster. Downside, Josh and Ryan have Juju Smith-Schuster. Tommy, you have James Conner. Trust fall, Josh and Tommy both have Deontay Johnson. Ryan, you said none really, so by default, you have James Conner.
Yeah.
This whole team's a hot mess. Let's be real.
Yes.
No offense, Tommy.
Rookie to watch, Anthony McFarland Jr. Sleeper, I have James Washington. He's going like wide receiver 79.
Yeah.
He's basically the deep threat on the team. Like, what are we doing?
Led the team in yards last year.
Yeah. And then my IDP, I have Cam Hayward. He's just a fat mess in the middle of the defensive line. Oh, I love Cam Hayward. I don't like the Steelers, but man, would I love Cam Hayward on my team. He is an absolute menace in the middle.
Do you like
I
him
love
more than TJ Watt?
Yes, because I think Cam Hayward is more disruptive in more facets of the game. That I think TJ Watt's a one-trick pony.
Or Devin Bush?
I was gonna
Devin
say,
Bush is just fast.
But it works.
I was
It,
gonna say that-
it does work, but so compared to in terms of IDP, TJ Watt is going to get you sacks. He's not going to get you tackles.
Yeah.
So TJ
So I think a
Watt,
lot of it will depend on your format.
Yes,
Like
so-
when we had Joe Redeman on and you guys were kind of going back and forth, a lot of the leagues that you play in are more tackle
It's-
heavy for points.
Yes.
He's
so
more sack heavy. So
yes. So in the leagues that Joe Redeman plays in, if you have leagues where you have a designated edge rusher or a designated outside linebacker, then I would put TJ Watt here. But if you're in a league like mine where you only play D linemen, linebackers, and cornerbacks, they're all roped into one, TJ Watt won't even rank in the top 50 because he's only going to get sacks. He's not going to get enough tackles. Whereas Cam Hayward, yes, he's going to score probably less points than TJ Watt or someone like Devin Bush. But Cam Hayward's going to rank in the top 10 at his position.
I was gonna say positional
Because-
value.
Exactly, because he's gonna rush the passer. He'll probably get, I don't know, 5-6 sacks, maybe even more. But he's also gonna rack up the tackles in the run game, which is something that TJ Watt won't do.
yeah, last year Cam Hayward career high with 83 combined tackles, and over the last 3 years has 29 sacks, 9 of which came last year. So he's doing it from both ends. He's racking
Well, it doesn't
up
help that the defense was on the
sacks.
field 70% of the game.
This is true.
I'll take
Yeah,
it.
well, and that obviously I think played into it. But 2 years ago, Hayward had 12 sacks. So I mean, and this was with TJ Watt. So I mean, he's benefiting, yes, from the extra attention that Watt gains, but he's also eating up the middle and getting those run stuffing tackles that I don't think that Watt really gets as.
I was
That's
saying if Pittsburgh can get back to the way they want to do things, clock controlling
Yeah.
things like that, that's going to open things up for him too. So
I think something to note too in the division, Marshall Yanda no longer with the Baltimore Ravens, one of
That's
the great offensive guards ever. So Hayward won't have to go against him. Cincinnati sucks, and as we've already talked about, Cleveland's offensive line is abysmal.
Yep.
So
They got better though.
yeah, they do.
Josh, okay, listen.
I'm saying Jack
Listen.
Conklin is good. Jedrick Wills is good.
But
Yes,
here's
he's
the
a
thing.
rookie, but
Here's the
he's
thing.
good.
They're both
So-
tackles, right?
They are tackles. Yes.
Cam Hayward doesn't go up against tackles.
Yeah.
He goes up against guards.
Okay.
And
Still got to
centers.
face Joel Batonio.
Oh God, Joel Batonio. Ah, God.
Batonio's
What?
good, man.
Okay,
He was
Josh.
really the only good thing on that line.
Josh, ready?
After they traded Zeitler.
Remember when Glad had normal trash bags,
Oh,
and then they partnered with Febreze to make Febreze trash bags? You want to know what they did? They polished a turd. Like it's still a trash bag.
Oh my God.
It just smells better. So in the case of the Browns, they're still a trash bag. They just dressed it up nicely. Like
They just bought some cologne. Is that
Yeah.
what you're trying to say?
yeah, they bought some Polo Red, put it on the shoulders, a little on the cuffs, and
I
said,
thought it
"Go
was
ahead."
Axe.
Oh, Axe body spray. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did
Like a
a
high school
3-hour
walk-around.
workout.
Discount cologne.
They did a 3-hour workout, didn't even shower, and was like, Axe is enough. That's
go.
the Cleveland Browns offensive line. All right. So from the Cleveland Browns to our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's talk receivers here, because I think this is interesting, because me personally, Juju Smith-Schuster is a wide receiver 1, and I see Fantasy Go NFL has commented in here. If he can return to 2018 Juju, where he averaged 89 yards and half a touchdown per game, I'll take that Juju as my wide receiver
But
1.
see, this is what people are forgetting. That Steelers team threw the ball 675 times.
And that's not going to happen this
They're
year.
not going to do that this
They
year.
also might have had another wide receiver who had some focus taken over to him.
That's okay. They have the replacement. Deontay Johnson's a baller.
Oh my God, he's not on
Deontay
Antonio
Johnson,
Brown.
2018 Antonio Brown.
Same thing. Same thing.
Carbon copy. He won't have 15
When
touchdowns.
Antonio Brown looks in the mirror, he sees Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah,
That's just the drugs he's taking.
my bad. How dare
I
I?
will not stand for this Deontay Johnson slander.
Oh,
That's
all
my
of
bad.
Toledo stands behind you, Josh.
Okay, so anyways, I know, Josh, you have Deontay Johnson as like wide receiver 14 in your
13 in
rankings.
my projections, yes.
Yeah, 13. He is like, yeah,
Good Lord.
full
I
on,
love it. I love it.
Full on schlongy for Deontay Johnson.
So, Josh, do you have your projections? What do you have him projected to do this year?
I have him at 129 targets, 85 receptions, 1,029 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
What do you have Juju at?
117 targets, 76 receptions, 995 yards, 7 touchdowns.
So you just have Deontay just straight up taking the number 1 spot.
Oh, yeah, because he runs outside. Juju, put anybody within 2 feet of him, and he's just going to fold like a piece of paper.
So are you worried at all, and I don't know how much they've worked together, of Ben's distrust of first-year wide receivers and the fact that Ben didn't play much last year?
Except Deontay Johnson's not a first-year wide receiver. He led the team in targets.
Yeah, but hold on. You missed the question.
Year, so.
Josh, you missed the question of it's technically a first-year receiver for Ben because Ben didn't play last year.
I'm not that worried about it because the moment that – look, we know that Ben trusts Juju, right? But Juju, he needs to be in the slot. This is the legitimate only way that he is going to be successful. He couldn't even put up half of his production when he was running outside last year.
Not even close.
It all comes from the slot. So, sure, Juju can dominate in the slot, but the only way that's going to happen is if Ben looks Deontay Johnson's way on the outside. And that's what's going to open up the slot for Juju. Because if they're going to double team Juju from the slot, Juju's done. He's not going to put up points. He's not going to, run these contested catches. That's just not his game. He is a give me the ball and I'm going to outrun everybody else.
Sure. And something to where if you look at Deontay Johnson's ADP right now, it is wide receiver 39. He is going as the first pick in the 11th round.
And I'll take that compared where Juju's going at like wide receiver 10.
Yeah, he's wide receiver 12 right now.
Way too high.
If
Way
we're going
too high.
value-wise, Deontay Johnson is by far the better value than Juju Smith-Schuster.
And you could even make an argument that James Washington's even more valuable than that. He's going.
I don't
like
think James Washington beats out
picks.
Chase Claypool.
So
see there, that's
does.
the big worry for me when it comes to James Washington. He led the team in yards, blew everybody out of the water when it came to air yards. He was the deep guy. But when you go out and draft Chase Claypool, what does that tell you? They don't trust the deep threat that they already have.
I mean, he didn't even look that great when he was playing with his old college quarterback and Mason Rudolph.
Well,
listen,
Rudolph looked bad.
Listen,
he got hit in the head with a helmet.
Yeah, he got hit in the head too many times. But, James Washington, his ADP is wide receiver 76, and Chase Claypool's is wide receiver 81. They're going undrafted. That is undrafted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, watch the waiver wire for them. But I want to point out Detroit Beastie. I think new to the show here. Listen, if you want to hear more things like full-on schlonging and softcore porn references, please tune into the show every week, okay?
I love that reference. I genuinely do.
I mean, Tommy was on the show when we were dubbed the Tinder of Fantasy Football Podcast. So
I take credit for that.
Yes, we give Tommy full credit. If you want to hear more very inappropriate yet PC jokes, please come join the show every single week. We appreciate it.
That's my specialty.
Yes, I absolutely love it because I realize that I can't be my Bostonian self on air. I have to be much more subdued. It's like an old Italian child living at home with his parents, but he's like 22, so he can't really be very boisterous and mean. He has to be very low key. No one's getting that because none of you are from Boston. Okay, cool. Let's move on.
That was awkward.
Why do I have you guys on this show? Why?
I don't know. You invited me.
I didn't invite you. Oh God.
Oh, good. So now I see how it is. He didn't want me on. It was Josh that wanted me on.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. That's
These
fine.
people.
You know what? I'm done now.
These people. Tommy, get out of here. No. All right. All right. So Tommy, since you're the
That's how you treat our guest, Joe. Damn you,
Josh. I treat everyone the exact same. I have constantly told Lauren that. What the heck, Lauren? I have told her multiple times. Who else have we had on the show? I'm trying to think back. Who's been a regular?
John Helmkamp.
Helmkamp.
That's on a couple weeks ago.
I mean, listen,
Aaron Larson. We had Stoner and
just
Paulie
do not
during
bring
the
up
broadcast.
Jonathan Taylor around John Hellcamp.
Listen, no, I am
20-minute
pants off for
diatribe
Jonathan
right there.
Taylor with
know.
him. I am full on schlonging, like I said.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, Tommy. When I invited you on, it went through my head. I was like, man, Do I have to invite John? I feel like I have to invite John to keep the bromance alive.
Well, he would have loved it because I put out a tweet the other day saying that I would rather draft Jonathan Taylor than Nick Chubb in 2020.
I would
And he
too.
loved it.
I would too. Every day of the week.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor will have 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's that good.
There's
only
nothing
do it-
stopping him from having 260 touches.
Line it
He's
up.
got a better offensive line. The receiving back that they have to deal with, Nick Chubb could actually be the number one back on most teams, and he's got a better offensive line. Give me Jonathan Taylor.
Every day, all day. So last thing I want to do here before we wrap up. So Tommy, we all know that the Steelers are your team. Give me a quick little spiel here as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers and their skill position players of Roethlisberger, James Conner, Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, why should they be drafted in fantasy football? Why should they be on your team for 2020?
I have a hard time telling you to do it, to be honest.
That's the exact reaction I was hoping for.
I'm trying not to be biased, but we have Ben Roethlisberger, who's got a broken shoulder still, or a broken elbow, I should say. We hope he can stay healthy. I think he can. He's had the whole year off. I think he'll be okay. Juju, we know the upside they had in 2018, but like Josh said, we have all the other concerns because he had Antonio Brown on the side. Can he be the wide receiver one? With James Conner, we see what he did, but he can't stay healthy. Then you see the Steelers bring in all of these other backup running backs because they know the best way to keep James Conner on the field is by keeping him off the field.
Yep.
You've got to limit those touches for him. They bring in Anthony McFarland. We all kind of saw what he did in Maryland. He's that speedster back. You're almost kind of looking back to almost like a Willie Parker in a way with Anthony McFarland for the Steelers.
I think we could see a very similar season from McFarland this year to what we saw last year with Devin Singletary. They have very similar games. Like they're not overly like McFarland's a little quicker from a 40 time perspective, but they play like, they're head down there and they're just going to run you over.
And I think you would love that. If you got Devin Singletary out of Anthony McFarland this year, given where you're taking him compared to Singletary last year, you love that. That's a home run.
Yep.
That's a huge ask, though, for Mike Tomlin because that's changing his offense completely. He's not run committee up to this point. So I'm interested to see if he's willing to make that change because if he's not and Connor's healthy, Connor's going to end up a steal in this draft because he's going to get 250 touches and he's going, I just looked at it, but it's later than he should be going, 22, RB 22. He'll be an RB1 if the Steelers are what the Steelers are. It's going to be interesting to see if McFarland comes in and does something like that.
It's all about that if between Roethlisberger or Conner. Can they stay healthy? If both of them can, I agree. They're both steals. Ben can be a top 10 quarterback, and Connor's a steal given his ADP. It just we saw when he had the 270 touches in 2018 when he took over for Le'Veon Bell, where he had 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns. He broke down at the end of the season. Then last year he only plays 10 games. So I feel like they're going to have to do this balance, whether or not James Conner splits a little bit, maybe like a Benny Snell in the rushing aspect, and we limit his touches in the passing game. Then you bring in Jalen Samuels, who we brought in his coach from NC State, and you see him run a little more outside. And then you have Anthony McFarland also in the passing game. I think there's a balance they can play, but I agree. It is a little bit counterintuitive to Mike Tomlin's philosophy.
I'm just curious, Tommy, what do you have Connor's projections at?
Let me pull it up. For me,
I have him at 178 rushing attempts.
Okay, I have him at 186.
Okay, so not too far off. All right.
No, we're not too far off on that one. It's just one of those, I just feel like the Steelers, if they know that they can't necessarily have Ben throw for 675 passing attempts, so you've got to do something else.
Yeah, I have Ben at 531 and the team as a whole at 587.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I completely agree. The problem is that the Steelers have a good enough defense to where they're probably not going to be playing in a lot of garbage time all the time.
Yeah.
Even though the AFC North is going to be difficult, especially when you're playing the Ravens twice, you might have a better Cleveland Browns offense with new Kevin Stefanski if he can make Baker Mayfield a better quarterback. You bring in Joe Burrow for the Bengals. I think there's some better. They've become better in those divisions. It's just, can the Steelers stay healthy? That's the biggest question running into 2020 because there's so many players that are affected by it.
Yeah.
Most definitely. All right, and that's the end of the show there. Josh, did you want to talk a little bit about the Scott Fish Bowl? I know it's almost time for that.
And this was a big reason why I wanted to bring Tommy on, because as some people know, or maybe don't know, Tommy, last year, I believe, was your first year in Scott Fish Bowl, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he finished runner-up. Now, we've had Gary Haddow on the show. We had him back on in January. And I did actually reach out to Gary. I wanted to see if I could get him on with you, because I wanted to, kind of let you guys kind of, talk and, have some fun with it. But Gary, they record their Fighting Chance podcast on Wednesday nights as well. So unfortunately, we weren't able to make that happen. But
so he big timed you.
Yeah, he did. It's okay.
Okay.
I swiped right. He swiped left. It is what it is.
You hate to say
so, but yeah, so we're actually one of the sponsors for the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon that they're doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome, guys.
Coming up in week or so, or when I can't remember the exact date of it. I'm blanking on it right now. But so Dave and Tim and I'm losing the names right at the moment. So I apologize, guys, if you're listening. But yeah, so we're one of the sponsors there. Unfortunately, Ryan's the only one of us that actually is in Scott Fish Bowl. So I did not get an invite, sadly, but hopefully next year. That's cool. So Tommy, Ryan, if you guys want to go ahead and give the whole spiel about Scott Fish Bowl, what it is, what it means to you guys, and just kind of your excitement for being a part of it.
Yeah,
go
Tommy,
ahead.
No, runner up goes first, buddy. Go right ahead.
I still hate Aaron Jones for that final run. Oh.
Wait, you lost to Aaron Jones in the championship too?
Okay, I will tell you what happened to me. You're gonna get a beer ready for this one. This one hurts. I went to that night needing like 31 points out of Devontae Adams. I needed 5 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Given the 5-point bonus scoring that we had, every 50 yards, you got an additional 5 points. I got it. I was in the lead. I had the win. And literally on the final play for the Green Bay Packers, when Aaron Jones converts the first down, that 4-yard run gave Aaron Jones over 150 yards. He got the 5-point bonus to beat me.
No.
Literally on the last offensive play for the Green Bay Packers. That's how I lost the Scott Fish Bowl.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had.
That's a heartbreaker.
I was on the plane flying back to Dallas after Christmas, and I watched on a tiny bit of a delay Aaron Jones rip off a 40-yard touchdown run.
Yep.
Yeah.
And out loud on the plane, I said, "What the F?"
Yep. The Minnesota Vikings defense did not show up that night. They were ready for Christmas.
I sat there. I'm like, okay, I have a 20-point lead going into tonight. I'm like, all right, Minnesota's defense is pretty good. And then oh, you little bastard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It was like if you saw that hype video that Gary put out, I'm the reason he wore that Aaron Jones jersey.
Yeah, because he's a Niners fan.
Yeah, because I had people that were giving me like congratulations and everything before they happened. So like I was getting like early celebrated and everything too. That big run that he had put him within like a 1.5, and that final 4-yard rush is what did me in. But kind of like we were saying, get back to the Scott Fish Bowl. The winning is great. The trophies and the accolades are great. Don't get me wrong. That's not what it's about. This is all about charity.
Yep.
Last year, the Scott Fish Bowl raised, I want to say it was like $62,000 for Toys for Tots.
Wow.
Nice.
What this does, it brings everyone together. The community becomes what we always wanted to be year round, and you're giving kids a Christmas. There's people who aren't always in the best situation to provide for that for Christmas for their kids, and they have to stretch paycheck to paycheck. This year, especially with 2020, it's going to be rough for a lot of people. It's a bad year, and we know it's going to hit come Christmas time. So what the Scott Fish Bowl does, and especially this year through all the shirts, the proceeds from RotoWear, we see what the Podathon has done, SFB Avi makers, everyone making all the avatars, all of that money going together for different various charities, but especially Toys for Tots, which is the big one for me. It helps give people a Christmas that they can remember for their kids. No one wants to be that one where the kids wake up all of a sudden, Santa didn't come this year, and this is a way to spread a little bit of joy while we have some fun at the same time playing fantasy football. That, to me, that's the big thing for me, is when you see the pictures of like all the toys being bought. Winning is great, but you know what? It is what it is. I'd rather see kids have some fun.
Yeah, I really think, and then I love one of the big things Scott does with it is every division, if I remember correctly, is 8 experts, and I use experts loosely because I'm in it, and 4 fans, and it's 3 to 4 fans. And so you get to interact with people who have followed you on Twitter and followed other people on Twitter, and you usually end up in a group chat with these guys, and it's real interesting drafting against them. Scott always comes up with really cool formatting to where it's not your standard draft. You're going to see quarterbacks and tight ends go crazy early. So a lot of people get annoyed when Scott Fishbowl kind of takes over their Twitter feed. You could not be further off base with that.
Yep.
It's like Tommy brought up. It's Toys for Tots. It's for charity. And I think Scott this year kind of encouraged people to donate to a charity of their choice. But the Potathon is still going to Fantasy Cares, and it's going to be Toys for Tots.
Yeah, I think when I was talking with Dave, FF Spaceman on Twitter, he was telling me that they were right up around $15,000 that they've raised so far.
And I think actually they passed that as well.
They passed 15. Awesome. Their initial Potathon goal was going to be 10, I think. They bumped it to 15 because of how quickly they passed it. Now they're putting out Twitter polls to figure out how high they should set their goal for the actual Potathon. So they're killing it. And like I said, don't get annoyed. And I know, Josh, this isn't you at all. Don't get annoyed if you didn't get in. Find a way to link on to somebody who did get in and just root for that.
Yeah, that's why you're on the show, Ryan.
Make a donation in their name. But Tommy said it best. It's not about winning, Scott Fish. It's fun to say you won, Scott Fish. I guess.
Must be, I don't know.
Well, I mean, when you look back like at SFB 8 when Stompy won and like the singlet celebrations and the trash talk,
bring up
like,
the singlet,
old,
like
wrestling
I had
promos
nightmares of that thing.
And then just like hearing Gary over the past 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it's been, it's fun, and that's at the end of the day, that's why we play fantasy. It's to have fun. And then with the added aspect of raising money for good causes, it brings everybody together. So,
that was so beautiful. That was amazing. I loved it. No, Toys for Tots is awesome. I know a local radio station up in Boston always does stuff for Toys for Tots every year. I love it. So I know Josh and I aren't technically a part of it, but Ryan, excited to have him represent Club Fantasy.
Faith is in it too, our editor. So
yes, Faith
we do
is
have
in it as well.
We have a couple people representing. So
what draft spot do you have, Ryan?
7.
7? Okay.
Yeah.
How many? 12 teams?
Yep.
Yes, 12.
That's a nice spot.
I got the 102.
I say it's more interesting in Scott Fish because you're gonna see Lamar and Pat go in those first 7 picks for sure, and then it's going to be interesting to see where Kelsey and Kittle end up.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, because I know he does. Isn't it Superflex, tight end premium, and then there's all kinds of other like little intricate scoring bits, like you lose points for
first
sacks.
Downs get points are the big thing. First downs get points, and then tight ends I think get an extra half point per reception and first down. So there's
and then also quarterbacks this year you get a half point per completion, but you lose a point per incompletion, and you take a negative point per sack.
Yep.
Wow.
So you need to be around that 67% completion percentage not to take a negative hit. So if you find a quarterback that's either inaccurate or holds a ball too long, it's bad.
So you don't want Josh Allen.
Exactly. He actually took the biggest hit for me in my projections.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being in the Scott Fish Bowl with those rules when Blake Bortles was available?
Oh God.
What a draft that would have been.
I forget who it was. Was it Sam Darnold? Ryan, you might know. It might have been brought up in your chat. I want to say it was Sam Darnold had like a negative 28 score game last year in the SFBX scoring.
It had to be against the Patriots on that Monday night game.
Yeah.
That might have been it. Because it's negative 4 points for an interception and another additional 2 points if it's a pick six.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to end the show on how bad Sam Darnold was in that game. Hold on. Let me pull up the stats real quick.
A favorite pastime of Joe's.
Oh, my God. Here's the thing. I'm actually a fan of Sam Darnold. I think he can be good. But Adam Gase is his head coach.
Adam Gase is the black hole of the NFL. He sucks the fun out of everything.
Oh my God.
Like literally, I truly think that Sam Darnold can be good. But yeah, that Wow, this is awful. This is a terrible stat line.
That's why it bugs me that everybody's hyping Denzel Mims. Like, just pass on 2020 because Mims ain't doing anything for.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was that combine.
Case this year.
Okay. So, it was week 7. 11 completions on 32 attempts. So his completion percentage was 34%. By far his lowest of the year. Not even close. 86 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1 sack, 3.6 QBR.
That's my favorite part. 3.6.
3.6 QBR. Yeah, so I'm going to take it that's the week that Sam Darnold had negative 28 points or whatever.
For those of you playing at home, folks, that's not good.
That is not good.
No.
At all. Oh, my God.
Very much
But
not good.
That was the seeing ghost game, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where everything just got blown up.
Yeah.
Yes. I was out there seeing ghosts. No, sir. You were running an Adam Gase offense. That's what you were doing. All right, Tommy, one more time before we wrap up the show. Where can everybody find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Tommy Garrett PFN, and all the work I do is over at Pro Football Network.
And you can find Ryan on his personal Twitter at TheFantasy5. You can find Josh at TheOneHudsonian, myself at Joe_Zolo. And you can find Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. You can follow us on YouTube and Twitch as well, Club Fantasy FFL, where we will live stream as well. Again, if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, if you're listening on 97.3 Sunshine Jams in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, we record every Wednesday night for you guys so we can keep it as up to date as soon as possible. So join us for the live streams on Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, or YouTube. We are more than happy to answer any of your questions live, as you saw here tonight. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. Next week, we will be talking about the Chicago Bears, the Los Angeles Rams, and Josh's beloved Philadelphia Eagles.